Well, hey, welcome to the channel. Tonight we're going to be cleaning up parts to get ready to paint on this WD while we're waiting on some engine parts. I've got several pieces that go on the engine that need cleaned up just for assembly reasons, so get them hung up on the scaffolding and then we'll go ahead and get the primer put on. So we'll start on that process and see how that goes, and we'll get some of that paint shot.
Alright, so over here to the bench and the vise, and we're just running the wire wheel on the grinder, cleaning everything up, getting the manifold cleaned up. Lots of nooks and crannies in there to get all the dirt and stuff out. Taking care of the front cover, getting the old gasket off, getting everything cleaned up so that we can put primer on the outside of it. And front main seal, we'll get replaced. You can see it laying down there at the bottom. And then we slide over here to the block. I got the blocks all stripped out at this point, so just go through and wire wheel the whole thing and get it cleaned up, get all the grease and everything out of it. And eventually I'll wipe down the inside as well, just to make sure that we don't have any crud left. And move the head over to the bench. We're going to pull out the manifold studs here in just a second. We'll put new ones on. I had a little bit of work to do on the side where the engine stand was mounted on that block, so I set it up there on the bench so I could get to that that side of it, get all that cleaned up. Then the good old oil pan, getting it wire wheeled and cleaned up as well. And the front pulley, there's lots of crud caked in the front of that. And then the distributor, I end up pulling the distributor apart. There's 3 sections there. I end up taking all of those apart and getting everything cleaned up on it. I'll put some new gaskets around that when we do the reassembly. I made sure to tape up and put some protection over that front gear and the governor. So getting all that squared away at this point. Probably worked a couple of hours at least on just cleaning this stuff up. I know the time lapse goes by pretty quick, but that's some back-breaking work cleaning over the bench like that. But it's got to be done, so just keep on keeping on. So working on the oil filter housing and oil line, a couple other plugs, a valve cover, making sure that everything is ready when I go to assemble this motor. I want to be able to just go straight through. I don't want to have to be waiting on a part to be cleaned up. So set my scaffolding back up, and I've got hangers on there so I can get things ready to paint.
Alright, so you've been watching on the time-lapse camera while I clean up the parts that I'm getting ready to paint. Worked on the distributor, pulled that all apart, got it cleaned up, had a ton of gunk inside it. We got the engine apart anyway, so timing's not going to be a problem. We'll just have to reset it. I want to put some new seals and what have you in that as well. So we got a lot of the other parts cleaned up. Got the thermostat housing, the oil filter housing, front pulley, valve cover, oil pan, front of the governor on the front cover. So not too many parts, but a few parts here that I want to go ahead and get painted. So typically I would blow up my spray booth and I would slide this whole set up inside that, and then I would shoot it. But for this case there's not that many parts to do, and I'm just going to use a primer spray can. So I went ahead and put down a couple of moving blankets. Good old Harbor Freight supplied those for cheap, so we got those set up, and that will just help for my overspray, anything that falls down. I won't have it on my concrete. I'm using gray anyway, you wouldn't see it, but it would just be kind of slick. But anyway, we'll go ahead and flip back over to the time lapse, and I'll get my mask and stuff on, then we'll go ahead and shoot these parts, and we'll let them dry, and then basically once my engine parts come in, we'll be ready to go right back with it. Probably have to do some touch up back with the primer before paint goes anyway once the engine's assembled, but I want to get all this stuff ready to go for right now.
Alright, so here we are back at the side of the parts here we're going to be primering. Just went ahead and shot those pretty quick. It didn't take too long using Rust-Oleum primer. And at this point, just slid back over to the bench. And earlier I mentioned about getting those manifold bolts out, so I went ahead and got those pulled out. There's the head. Almost cleaned up. I'm going to go ahead and cover up the valve train here because I'm going to be painting the block as well. So I want to get it covered up and finish cleaning up on the head portion. And then over on the sawhorses, I already had the block set in there, so we just set the head on the block, and that way it will seal off the bottom side of the head and the top side of the block. Don't have to worry about any overspray getting on that. Put the side plate on, which I had already painted. So we got it bolted up to the side here, and then I had to go around and tape off the areas where I'm going to have gaskets. So that's what I'm doing now. Taped off the edge of the oil T coming out of the side of the block. Then I go through with my knife and just trim off the excess around the edges here. Make a nice clean look out of it. Takes a little bit of time, but you know, when you're doing a restoration project, it always ends up costing more time, but to make it look right, it requires extra time. So again, we're just using the Rust-Oleum primer here. Just want to get everything coated up here prior to engine assembly. Alright guys, thanks for watching. This is part 10 of a multiple part series on this WD restoration project. We got deep into the engine here, so it kind of delayed the overall project, but thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that you can be notified when the next video is posted. Have a good day.